you been looking for a podcast to help you transform your physical and mental? One that'll shoot you straight between the eyes with truth and no BS, helping you have the right mindset to accomplish things, the iron will and fortitude to follow through with what you say you're going to do. No excuses. Mark owns martial arts schools, and after 30 years, he has some real insight for real talk, real life, real conversations, motivational, fitness, self-defense, weight loss, live from the Great 1-8. This is Real Talk with Mark Cox.
There we are. We're live. Good morning,
Good
Pastor
morning.
Patricia. Emilio sent me last night. He was super stoked for this today for us to get together. He was like, "Man, this is our first one. She's going to be, that's when he's the one that told me also that's the first time you get to do a podcast." And I've got to be lucky for me. I've got to be on some of these calls with you to see what an awesome person you really are and what you're speaking for. And I wanted to say right here before we get started, Miss Patricia, that we were talking off camera here just a second ago and saying thank you, man, because I know that you guys knew I was sick a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about prayer, and I'm telling you that God healed me in that hospital in 3 days, man. I could feel it. I could just feel it when people were, saying that they're praying for me and then what it was, and I know that you were one of them, and I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate that,
All
man.
Glory to God.
Yes, it was great. It was, and it was good. It was something I needed, to be honest with you. I wouldn't change that in any time. It's not fun going through it, but sometimes, you got to go through the storm, to get to the calm waters. So they have a story out there, right, about buffalo and cows, and the buffalo and cows, when the storm hits, cows have a tendency to run away from the storm.
Mm-hmm.
And they get tired, and the storm keeps catching up to them. And to the point that they still got to go through the storm, and now they're tired on top of it, where a buffalo runs to the storm. And once that storm is passed, they're in the pastures having stuff. So that's the same thing. Sometimes you got to go through these storms in order to be, to come out to a different time and growth. So I appreciate that. So
I like the visual you just painted with that.
Yeah.
Story. I really like that.
Yes.
That's great, because sometimes the storm will help us with knowing when the pivot needs to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely. Yeah, we got to ride those storms, man. That's what makes us rock and roll.
Right.
Either people cower. I say it all the time. Either you find a way out or you tap out. One of the two. You're either going to quit or find a way out. It's just the way it goes. So this is great. Jose Escobar's on saying, great to see Patricia on the show. She's amazing. What a great leader and entrepreneur. Jose and I have been friends for a long time. We always kind of cut up with each other. So I'll be nice to him today.
All right.
Yeah. So here's what I'm going to do. Let me do this. I'm going to read your bio for everybody so they can see just kind of what an outstanding person you really are. And we're going to dabble into some of the stuff that you do in your life's journey. So Patricia is an ordained minister of the gospel and the founder of the nonprofit organization, A Life Worth Living Corporation in Massachusetts. This nonprofit, established in August 2017, serves women and families who are moving for shelter to home with supportive services, household supplies, coat drives, and Bible groups. Patricia is also a certified leadership and personal growth coach, trainer, and speaker. She's the CEO of Growth Arise Consulting, LLC. Patricia specializes in the DISC personality assessment, which helps individuals and groups to understand their communication style and how to effectively communicate with each other. Patricia is a co-author in the anthology with other pastors. The book launches in January 2024. The title of the book is called Transforming from Pain to Purpose. Patricia has received the designation of a CPM. So this is what it says, your certification property manager. This is what you did for over 22 years. Is this what you did?
Correct.
Oh, okay. That's good. Let's talk about that. How was that? How'd that prepare you for doing what you do today?
How that prepared me was being able to help people not only get housing, get their apartments, but to be able to maintain in their units.
Yes, I think that's good. I
Maintain. It's
remember as
not
a
just
young,
getting, it's not just turning the key and voila, everything's fixed. But it's getting it, maintaining it, and making um, your finances to align with what your responsibilities are now.
yes. And so now, were you able to kind of help people out? So being in a position like that, so if you're property managing somebody, were you able to get inside there and help people with their finances so that they can keep their apartments and such like that, and how to get into
Not in the job role, but in the ministry role.
right?
I've had.
Isn't it right? So we say that all the time, right? Isn't it funny how some of our main jobs, my studio is more of a consulting thing. I cannot tell you how many people come into my office with their lives tattered, and it's not about the punching and kicking anymore. It's about the support they get
Yes.
inside a martial arts school, right? And we get to bring something to the table, even though that's our main job. I've seen that all the time. Now, my brother, he's another one. He's a pastor also, but he's also been a police officer for 29 years. He's a reserve. And what he does now is, he's the head of the Zoe, which is the Christian organization that has to do with trafficked women.
Mm-hmm.
And so all his experience from being in law enforcement has transformed over to that to help get these kids that are trafficked, these women that are these young girls trafficked, and get out. But as a cop, my brother has got stories where people are dying in his arms and he's praying for them as they die as a police officer. You know what I mean? So I think all that happens when we bring, well, you know what? God, here's the bottom line, man. God just kind of shows up where we are. It doesn't really matter.
That's right.
So
that's right.
So
that's exactly what they was thinking.
Yeah.
Your purpose is your purpose. Right. And it's with you for the rest of your life, no matter where you are. It's your purpose 100%. Is your purpose.
It is so true.
I have prayed over a resident who was passing. She was in the hospice stage more than 1, 2, or 3 times through the course of my career. And it's comforting to know that she accepted the Lord before she was totally out.
Isn't that great?
Yes.
Isn't that awesome?
That
just makes the passing so much easier when you know that. It's, and I've had to do the same thing in what I do. How many people have, well, even in my book, there's quite a few people that have passed in my school. And it's been it's been heart-wrenching, from kids to adults. It was never easy. And the school is just, a sense of, a sense of hope, I guess is the best way to say it, and being there for people. I don't know how else to say it, but it is what it is, man. We definitely, it doesn't really matter where we are. Something comes up, and if you have those, when the divine shows up, you either listen to it or you don't. And when you don't,
you pay for it later.
Yeah, you pay for it later, man. It's just,
and you learn to listen the next time.
Right. You just you can't tell you how many times I look up and go, why don't you just punch me in the face, man? Right. And I'll take a punch in the face over that lesson, please. You know what I mean? So it's always like that. It's always like that. So that's great. Well, so that's great. So I want to get into, now that we've talked, now that you've kind of retired now from that. Yes. And you have a new purpose. And we spoke a lot about what it's like as we get older on how to have a certain purpose and a passion that you really have. So now without the, the burden of having this paycheck to paycheck, now you kind of get after what you want to do, and you have a nonprofit, and it's called, right, a Life Worth Living Corporation.
Yes.
Let's talk about what that looks like, what that does.
So, a Life Worth Living Corp was established back in August of 2017. And it was predominantly, I opened it up to help reach back to those women and or families, because it's predominantly women, but sometimes men are part of the equation of feeling fearful, having low self-esteem, feeling shameful of being in shelters or making bad decisions, even with addiction, because I
Mhm.
lived all of those and I came out victorious through the power of God. So this is my attempt to reach back and help those that found themselves stuck like I did.
So that's interesting. Your backstory then, this is something that you've come out of then. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Victoriously through the power of God.
That is
Yes.
such a yeah, see that's the power of that. So these women now it says in here in your thing, it serves women and families who are moving for
Yes.
shelter to home. So are you helping them both get to a shelter and then get
Yes.
out? Is that what we're doing?
Sh- Um, it helps getting to the shelter. It's also to help support the supportive services is women's groups, sometimes one-on-one. I've been coaching for years without having the formal training, just my
Mhm.
life experience. But now I've had the formal training, and that's why I opened the consulting business. I also supply household goods for when they do move. I've done a coat. My first coat drive was last year, and I supplied over 5 different shelters and individuals with the whole family coats, hats, gloves, and scarves to support them through the winter, to alleviate that expense and that need.
That's yeah, so that's so important on for them to have some stuff when they go. So we're going to talk about Terry Huck says, do you know Terry or not?
No, I don't.
Oh, this if you get a chance to see Terry Hucks, well, first of all, I interviewed him. He had a great interview, but he's a man of God, man. This guy's awesome. You'll love him. So if you go back and listen to my podcast with him, you'll he's just such a good guy.
Oh, that's
You really
awesome.
like him. Yeah, you really like him.
I will write his name
Right.
down.
Yes, yes. You right have the power of the kingdom is strong in that CLA. I'm telling you right now. All
Okay.
right. And so, yeah, make sure that you guys connect to know each other because you never know what even connections what you got when you need things. And I don't know. You said so. You when you do your drives, do you do them kind of locally? So when you did when you did a coat drive, do you have a church that you're working out of, or how is that looking? How do you go about that?
I did it through social media, yeah, word of mouth, and the
Mm-hmm.
shelters that I do service. So it's a wide array of ways I get the word out, especially with word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And people who know me, they know my heart. They know I'm
Yeah.
willing to give and to help in any way that I possibly can that remains legal.
That's correct.
Yes, because there's always some folks that will try to cross the line,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and it's not just a need; it's a want.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I totally understand that too. Totally understand that. That's wisdom right there for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
That's wisdom right there. So when these women they have children also. Is that what
Yes, they
you
do
are
have children, but
getting?
there's so many support services for children. It's the parents that oftentimes get left behind. There's all kinds of after school, there's group, there's counseling. Not that it's not for the women, but women tend to, because we're nurturers, we want to take care of everything. I've been there. I've lived that. Wanting to take care of everybody else to make sure everybody else is good. And then I'm the last. So that's the supports, especially with women groups and one-on-ones that I do to provide a supportive service to them.
And I think that's important. Daniela's saying hi, by the way. She's on here. Daniela is here. I think that's really important. I say this quite often. I was a single dad. I raised my children. I wasn't one of the weekend type dads. I'm the one that kind of raised my kids. They live with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been doing my school's been around for 35 plus years.
That's great.
And I've always seen the struggle of single moms. I've said this. I can't tell you how many times I've said this.
Mm-hmm.
I've never struggled as much with my children as I see single moms struggle with their children. And I think
Right.
it's because what you talk about. You see, I've had 3 boys and a girl. Now they're all raised. They're all grown adults now. They've all graduated college. They've all done something I haven't done. But as a dad, as a father, it's a little bit different. I watch how the little boys, as they get older and older, kind of take it to their moms, their single moms,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's why they probably bring them to martial arts school, because there's some strong men here that's going to put them in check. But I wouldn't say it was easy being a single dad. My kids had to grow up. But I'm telling you, as a dad, my boys, they would never think about back talking me. Okay. I would have knocked the crap out of them. And so it wasn't just one of those things. And because
Mm-hmm.
moms are kind of, like you said, they're naturally nurturing and stuff like that. It was just, I see the struggle all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Inside my own school, I see it all the time. And it's heart-wrenching for me. And then, you got to have another man talk to a young man and say, hey, listen, is this okay? If you treat your mom like this, you're going to treat your wife like this. This is exactly what's going to happen. If you can't treat your mom with respect, how are you going to treat a woman that you love with respect? Because you're not going to love anybody more than you need to love your mom. And if you don't have some kind of a strong role model, male role models enforcing that, and they start getting into adolescence where it's
Mm-hmm.
harder to control them. And that's the beauty of a martial arts school, because, we can whoop on them a little bit, and it's just part of doing class. But, so it makes things.
That is great. Can I share this? I have 5 children and 2 boys, 3 girls. And when I, as a single mother at the time, was trying to speak to them about sex education, they were like, oh, Mom, come on. I'm going to pass out if you say another word. Don't tell me anything. I mean, I was trying to make the cartoon version into the natural anatomy, trying all kinds of ways. It's like, oh, can you stop it? So then I said, I have to find a strong man to talk to my boys. But it was funny. I had to share that because I did try.
That is true.
One thing I did say to them, and I thought my son was going to collapse. I said, your private parts, it's not a thermometer that you take everybody's temperature. And then that was my segue to go in. They was like, oh, cut it out. I tried.
That's
I
funny.
stick with women.
That's one of the best stories ever on my podcast. That's it right there. That's going to take the cake 100%. It's so funny. That is so funny. Yeah. So tell me some. Okay, so we talk about what you're doing, right? Let's see, even Terry's like, that's hilarious. The men are going to be laughing about that. Let's talk about what you've done, and let's talk about some success stories. So let's talk about some women that you've seen come in, and then you've seen them turn around. How does that look? Because now listen, Patricia, because everybody thinks, all these nonprofits, even my brother, it's heart-wrenching because at the home, they have a Zoe home here in California. Mm-hmm. And so in that home, these young girls come, but guess what? They can leave at will. The state, California sucks anyway, but there's no way that they can say if they want to go out and run, and go get high or do what they're going to do or sell themselves for a couple days. They'll go do it and come back to the house. And it is heart-wrenching to try and get through to them. You know what I mean? And so that's, that's the downfall of these things, because you see it, just like you say, they're taking advantage of the system and they're not getting the growth that they need from it. So let's hear some of the success stories on somebody that you've helped and you've seen them get to the next level to help them out.
I've helped, there's been several women that was experiencing bitterness just because of the wreckage of their past, which I've gone through too. A spirit of bitterness, everything is a negative outlook, and really turn it around to really work with them about the pros of cons on how they're viewing things, so their lenses get changed into the positive. I've seen that happen with several women throughout the course of me having a life worth living, as well as that used to happen to me when I was working. People will come into my office, close the door, and start releasing. Just start releasing. And then that will help them realize, hearing their own voice releasing helps them realize, wow, that doesn't even make sense. Why am I even angry about that?
That's true.
Yes.
That's so true.
I have several success stories regarding that. And from people who, some younger women who were looking for housing, got into a shelter, did what they had to do, took the advice, heard my story, heard my testimonies. And I only release my testimonies if they're ready to hear it, not just to talk.
True.
If you know what I mean. Sometimes, like,
yes, ma'am.
If I'm talking to someone that's battling with addiction, I will tell them a testimony, not for bragging rights, but to help them to see there is light at the end of the tunnel.
So, well, that's good. And once again, that's wisdom too. Sometimes we throw our testimony out when people aren't really ready.
Yeah,
if people aren't really, if people aren't really ready to hear it,
right.
It just isn't, I think that's true in all things. Now, I didn't come from addiction background per se, but I do know this. If you don't, you have to make, at some point, you have to have a mind shift. I don't care how much counseling you do.
Correct.
At some point, you have to take responsibility for yourself and say, okay, I'm ready for this change.
Amen.
And that's right.
And this is why I'm talking about changing the lens, the lens of your perspective, how you view things, how you're even speaking, changing the language, how we speak, because we can put in the atmosphere all this negativity because that's what's inside of us. When we learn to know, to get out that's bogging us down inside, we can change our language to the positive. And I've seen it happen.
It's so, it's so good. And so all the listeners out there, as you notice, when you speak to the women, men can listen to exactly what you're saying right there. Because men carry things a little bit different. I can tell you this because I know me. Okay. I'm not talking about my feelings. I'm not, even my church that I go to, they know this about me. Most church have life groups and stuff like that. And you get together, and I've always told them, I'm not sitting around a bunch of men singing Kumbaya and I'm going to tell you my feelings. It's not going to happen. Okay. Because it's just, now some men are able to do that. And I noticed that men of this generation, they can sit around and sing Kumbaya. My generation is just not, that's just not what I do. But my ministry, we would do life groups here at the studio, and it was called Bible Beatdown or Jesus and Jits. And so what we would do is we would do our 8 weeks, we would fight. And then afterwards we would sit down and go over the lessons of the week. And, I like these type of men that may not feel that they're worthy to step into a church, They toe the line, whether being a bad boy or, and trying to get their anger under control and stuff like that. Right. And so I can relate to that. Now, when I bleed with you a little bit, okay, and these guys need to have some of that because they don't have any release. And when a man doesn't have release, he's going to release it somewhere. And that shouldn't be on especially on their wife or girlfriend. I can tell you that. And so we get to speak to that. And then you get somebody like me that they can release that on. And I have a bond there. See, it's different than me getting on Zoom calls and how was your week? And that, man, it's just not me. And then, of course, Jesus and jiu-jitsu, I mean, that's what we would do. We try and choke each other out. And then we would sweat and bleed a little bit. And then we talk about, what their addictions are, whether it's pornographic addiction, which is pretty prevalent in males anyway. But even when they're married and we break down, and then you see these, strong grown guys realizing that, hey man, I'm not quite there, man. I'm just kind of being a jerk. And so I would see that this is, and the reason I bring that up is because even though you say to a lot of women, if this advice you just gave is just as well for a male to listen to as it is for a female, I think that it offers a lot of wisdom that comes out of your mouth there, Pastor, for sure. And so I wanted to interject that a little bit because I know what your forte lies is to help these women. And listen, and I've seen some of these myself, me personally. I'll give you a little bit of personal story. I'm not sure if I've talked about this before, but when I was going through a divorce long time ago, when my kids were babies, I checked myself into a anger management. Now, a lot of these guys are court-ordered anger management. And so I'm sitting with a group. I didn't think I really liked this, sitting with a group of guys, but I learned some valuable lessons in that setting. Well, first of all, I learned that, man, these guys are off the chain. Some of these guys that are, in their court mandated, I'm like, man, could I end up like this, my anger take over to the point that I would do some of this craziness here. And so I did this myself for 6 months so that I can get some tools to get myself. It's so funny. It's a certain type of man there, and usually they're kind of alpha dudes, you know what I mean? And we're all kind of the same type of way, and we just don't know how to release the beast that's inside of us and the anger that from whatever it is. Do you find that on women's side, or do you find them more kind of beaten down than that? What's the difference that you see?
I am super glad that you told that story, because many years ago, I'm going to tell you about myself and then answer your question. Myself, I did the same thing you did, is check myself into a facility because my anger was, for me, off the roof, where I wanted to hurt who I was with. So I checked myself in, and oftentimes I would find women on both ends of the spectrum, either so angry that they're willing to do bodily harm, or so beaten down they lost their own identity or their voice to speak up and say, I will not accept this anymore. I've been on both ends of the spectrum, but I've done exactly what you've done.
So good to hear that it's not only that's super powerful, because anger is gender neutral.
That's right. Absolutely. And oftentimes, and I will say this out loud, women gravitate to the victimization as opposed to the perpetrator. So I've been both, the perpetrator and the victim. And oftentimes we combine the two.
Yes. That's so awesome, Patricia, to even to even say that, because it is prevalent in today's world that it's automatic that men are just kind of jerks that way, and it's not the other way
Exactly.
around.
Mm-hmm.
And because, in my story too, it's not like you don't have a wife that's screaming, yelling at you on top of it. It's just different than
Mm-hmm.
it's just a different mentality, and it plays out in courts too. I mean, I see good men get beat down
Yes, I
in
have too.
divorces all the time because of
Mm-hmm.
hate and bitterness and
Mm-hmm.
anger. And I say this to everybody all the time that comes into me that's doing a divorce, and hey, my husband's this or my wife's this, and I say,
Mm-hmm.
look, divorce is an ugly business, and it is powered. The drivetrain is powered by and motivated by money. And how can I use the kids to get what I want?
Mm-hmm.
It's never in the
Oh,
interest
yes.
of the kids, ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw something even yesterday that I was at a black belt test. I was in Georgia yesterday, and I was at a black belt test on Saturday. And I watched a family come up, and there's a dad and a stepmom, and the mom spoke to her son, because we always say something about our kids before we turn black belts on them. And she's talking, and she says, I'm very grateful for his dad and for his stepmom. And I'm thinking, what the heck? I said, I've never, ever seen that, ever.
Mm-hmm.
I was telling my student that owns the school, I said, man, that's powerful. That woman is,
Yes.
that's some powerful stuff there.
This
Because,
forgiveness has taken place.
yes. And that
Mm-hmm.
is, and I don't know, it took a long time for me, Patricia, to have any kind of forgiveness. I was a pretty angry dude, man. When you're, without getting super personal in my life, but
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
certain things happen, you're like, and it's out of your control, and you're kind of an alpha, and you're like, man, I can't control this, and
Mm-hmm.
things keep happening to you. It can put you in pretty dark pretty quick,
Oh,
for
yes.
sure. And
Oh,
so
yes.
I think that you give some really good advice on that. And the other thing is, you've been there. So when I hear that, when I hear you say, I've been on both sides, I've been the angry one, and I've been the one that's been angered on.
Mm-hmm.
And so and I guess I bet your reality is, we probably all that, to be honest with you.
Yes, we just
I,
don't speak about it.
yes, we just, why? Because it's going to show weakness, and it's going
That's
to
right.
show doubt, and it's
The
not. And
perception of weakness.
yes, that and then you lose your, you lose your victim title or
Mm-hmm.
thing. And I think that this is one thing in my school I speak about. The best book that I've ever read is a Jocko book called Extreme Ownership. And man, when I read that book, it was stop blaming everybody else. Take
Yes.
ownership of your own stuff. When you start taking ownership, you stop worrying
Mm-hmm.
about what everybody else does. And it was a shift for me in my head when I first read that book. And I was like, man, I do some of this stuff, man.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, I think that's that's really, now you got me thinking, you know what I mean? I'm
Yes,
going to get off this.
I can
I'll
see
be,
it.
I'll be off this.
I can see it because
All
you
right.
know what? The fear factor, the fear of being exposed, the
Mm-hmm.
fear of um, other people's opinions. The fear factor has so many categories that go with that. That's what one of the things we have to overcome is a fear factor, especially of the ones of being exposed, because we have to shed light to what's not good so we can get it right.
Right.
Especially
Isn't
when
that,
we still have an opportunity to get it right. And we have an opportunity because we're still here. There's a purpose and a plan for each one of us. And we're the ones that deter our own purpose by not dealing with the negative stuff that's inside of us.
man, that's true. That's good. That's good, Pastor, for sure. I think that's, this will have me, I'll go back and listen to the podcast again so I can get some of the, some of these nuggets out of here again. He says, I have to get on a call, but I love you, my brother Mark. God bless you. Patricia, love the podcast. You're both making a difference in the lives of others.
Thank you.
Yeah, I told you Terry's a good guy. So
God bless you too.
yeah, that's gonna be great. Okay, so I want to talk. Let's talk about let's make a segue into what you did now. Now you're doing this anthology, and now that I've kind of got a little bit of your background, your anthology of this book that you're doing is has to do from it's called Pain to what's the anthology?
Transformation from Pain to Purpose.
So you got chapter 11 in there. Did you pick 11 for a purpose?
No, I didn't pick it for a purpose. That was what was available. The title of my chapter is called From the Entrapment of Fear to the Realization of Purpose.
That's going to be good. Yeah. So we don't want to dabble too much into it because we want people to be able to read it, and it's coming out in January.
Yes.
In this. Now, is this a all-female book?
Yes, it is. There's pastors around the world.
Okay.
And it's led by Dr. Maureen McIntosh Alberts. She's the visionary. We have pastors in Ireland, Ghana, South America, and in the States.
Now this anthology, did you have other women that you've never met that have all come together, or are you a group of women that now you have, and now, so do you guys have a group where you guys kind of talk, and then did you come into the AMA group to help with this? How did the AMA group come around to you guys? How we all get to meet you guys through that group? Because I know that the one that you're with, I think she's the one that came in first, correct?
Correct. And the deal that she made with Emilio and Daniela, we all had the opportunity to be in AMA until the book launch. So I was one of the last people being invited to this anthology because I met Dr. Maureen back in August at the John Maxwell Leadership Certification when I first got certified. And then I met her again in March. And that's when she brought me in, invited me into this anthology, which is my first writing. I've always wanted to write segments of my story to help anyone that it will help. And I believe that it will.
Well, I think that's good. So I've done a couple anthologies now, right? The Born to Risk, I'm in that one, and I'm in another one, the younger version of me. It's another anthology. I think it's a great way for, I jumped in with AMA, to write my book on Beyond the Mat, right? I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I was like just a rookie, right? A white belt.
Then the headlight.
And then I was like, it was overwhelming and I couldn't put my thoughts together. And then Emilio kind of coached me through that and put somebody in front of me to help me. And if you would told me that within a year I could help other people start writing and stuff like that, people look at me. I was just telling the story. I said, nobody would think that Mark Cox was a writer. I didn't go to school. I didn't do any of that. But the lessons of life is way better than 4 years of college. I could tell you that for a fact.
I could tell you that too.
So
I didn't finish my bachelor's, and I've always tore myself down about it. But the life lessons.
Uh-oh, where'd she go? Come on, Patricia, come back on. I don't want to leave it here. I got more questions. So as we're waiting for her, let's see if she gets, if she can get back on. Something happened with her, a little bit of internet. So let me give you guys some feedback on Patricia on how I met her real quick. And how I met her was we have a group. We have this AMA group that meets, and Emilio and Daniela are the leaders of that. And so what happens with that group is we come on for a weekly call, And these women come on and they're talking about this anthology book that they're having. And there's a group of them that are together that's inside the AMA group that gets to come on. And the AMA group, kind of helps take authors and how to take your book and take it to the next level and make sure that you can get to the next level with it. And so when that happens, you're able to, you're able to collaborate with all these other authors and say, okay, how do we sell books, or what's the best way? And then that's what, that's the forte of Daniela and Emilio, is to be able to do this. This is what I did for Beyond the Mat. I found them, and it took me a year to write the book, and it was step by step, and getting coaching with them and all that stuff that comes with it, and how to edit and how to pre-sell and how to set things up. And then you get in this group, and this is what it is. And so Patricia was one of those ladies that came in it. And during this thing, I tell everybody that has things, if you want, one of the other side businesses I have is how to start your podcast, on how to take your voice and get it out there, and take my experiences. And so you don't make mistakes like I made in the beginning, and how to get up and do your stuff that you're doing. Now she's back on here right now. And so this is where we met. Got you back on there, Patricia. We're good.
Thank you.
It's not a big deal. I was just talking to them a little bit about where I met you and stuff like that. So we have, so they have an idea of where we came from together in the AMA group. So let's get back to where we were. Do you have your last thought that you had before we go?
Tell me what the question was.
So we were talking about you came into the AMA group through
Dr. Maureen,
right? And now tell me about the group. Now, has it helped you guys collaborating with us the way we are? Has it helped you with the writing? Because I had no idea that I'd be doing any of this stuff a year later. That's what I was telling you, is like, man, coming into this and knowing that I can help you write something here a year later is like foreign to me. I never thought I'd be able to do that. Now, has the group helped you guys out with that?
Yes, it helped me out tremendously. Like I said, I got in March, end of March, and I submitted my chapter by April, by the deadline of April 3rd. And that was my second version, because I had every thought in my head on paper. So, and it wasn't connected. I could just say that out loud.
Yeah. That's the hardest thing.
This happened. Oh yeah. And then that happened.
Right.
And instead of telling the story like I did the second time around, because taking the feedback. So it helped me tremendously.
Yeah, that's good. I think that was the hardest thing for me too, is formulating thoughts, right? Because you've got all this stuff in your head and you think you have to talk about every single thing, and you just got to kind of break down. Listen, I did the same thing, man. It was tough, man. I was like, man, what am I doing here? Right. And so it was super tough for me. And then, I started figuring out on outlines, and then it's just like anything else. It's just like when you advertise, less is more, right?
Yes.
The more you can kind of dial in, this is the chapter, this is what I'm going to speak about, this is the outline of this chapter, this is what we're going to get, this is what I want at the end results. Because ultimately the book is a segue for you to be able to speak somewhere.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That I'm going to speak on this at this location, and then you can expand on the story. Hey, the chapter in my book on this is where it's going.
Exactly.
And so that's always been really hard. Now, you said that you did something else. Now, you went to John Maxwell's. That's what you decided to go to help with coaching. Is that correct? That's
correct. To get it formalized and become a coach, a trainer, and a speaker. So I went through that certification, and then I advanced as a consultant for the DISC assessment.
Right. And we'll talk about that DISC assessment. That's something I'm going to dabble into. Now, what was the experience? I looked at doing that. John Maxwell, he's one of my favorite guys anyway. Mm-hmm. I have his Bible, the Leadership Bible.
So do I.
Man, I like that Bible, man.
Yes, it's great.
So good. So tell me about the experience that you had with that. How'd you feel about that?
I had a wonderful experience, because everybody that from John Maxwell and his team. They're so welcoming and encouraging for when you come in and when you get in. Very encouraging. They're very informative. They have quite a bit of training. It was excellent. It still is excellent.
It's so good. Yeah, I've looked into doing that. I haven't dabbled into enough. Now, when you say you're going to go out and speaking, tell me about that. Have you got to do some speaking yet?
I just did a speaking event Saturday.
And how was it? Were you nervous? Was it good?
Of course I was nervous. I didn't eat all day. I
That's how
can't
it
eat
goes.
when I do any kind of events. I can't eat. I can only sip water. Otherwise, the rumble in the stomach will be ferocious.
So true. I've done these. I had made a decision that I'm going to go ahead and start being a speaker. That's my next thing. I believe that my life lessons, when I get up on stage and I can talk to you about what I learned being a competitor, what I learned about being a fighter, what I've learned about being a coach, what I've learned taking people to having 700 black belts that I've produced in my 35, 40 years, and the experiences from each one and what it looks like. And how somebody like me that took a GED out of high school could make something out of himself. So I wanted to make sure that I could go out there and speak. So I did these speaking engagements like you did. And I never had a problem getting up in front of the people, but I realized that I wasn't good at. I can get everybody jacked up, right? And it's something I do well, but I needed to learn how to hone in myself. I went to Daniel Gomez's speaker thing, and then I listened to myself speak on stage, and I'm like, man, I got to fix that. I did some competitions, and I'm super competitive. And when I don't win, it really pisses me off, right? I tell everybody this all the time. When I hate losing more than I like winning. And so I said, I got to do something. So I went to Toastmasters after Daniel Gomez's things. And so I've been in a Toastmasters group now for forever now. And it has been the best thing for me. Okay. So I would encourage you that, as a matter of fact, I'll even send you an invite that you can watch, and you can dabble into ours because it's all on Zoom anyway.
Oh, great.
And I'll give you an invite, and you can just come and watch, because I think, we usually do them on Thursday nights, and I believe that I'm even speaking this next Thursday. And so I'll invite you as a guest, and then you can come in and see what Toastmasters are. And maybe there's something locally too that you may have. But I will tell you that it's been a game changer. It's inexpensive, but you get to do a speech. You get evaluations. You get to kind of be a leader within this thing, and what it's like to lead a group and get this whole thing. I never knew. I wish I would have done it years ago. So I just never knew what it was, the power of it before. So I would encourage you to keep speaking, keep getting after it, and be yourself when you're out there.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Because you are really powerful, Pastor. When we just talk, like we're just talking to a group, and how you are, and how you deliver your stuff, and the wisdoms that you had, even just on this podcast, you are going to change some people's lives, and they are going to be able to relate to you. And especially when you start saying that, oh, you anger, you don't think I had that? I was there. You think you got anger? Oh, are you going to be victimized? Yeah, I played that role too. And this is what it got me. And when you start doing that kind of stuff, it's going to be powerful for you to lead others and help these women. And I keep coming back to women, but you spoke to a lot of men today. So don't take it for granted that you don't have something to say to them that is definitely worth listening to, for sure. It's nice to see Jose. He's been on this. He's been on this.
I know. I see
that.
that. I'm seeing it. That's awesome. I'm loving the encouragement.
Yeah, he says we're in 3 circles together. We are in 3 circles together, Patricia.
Yes.
CLA, GMT, and the AMA.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He's been a good buddy for a long time. Let's talk about this disc. Our hours coming thing, but I wanted to spend some time on this. So tell me what this is. Tell me about this. And did you go through what kind of training was that? Was that through?
That's through John
John
Maxwell.
Maxwell's name. Okay.
Yeah. Deb and Gino, it was the creator of the whole program for DISC. She's wonderful trainer. Um, so the DISC assessment, this personality assessment, is broken up just like what is said, DISC. Those are the four different communication styles that we have. And there is an assessment that you do. There's only 24 questions long online, and it produces a 30-page detailed report about your style according to how you answered, about your communication style, and how you can better communicate with the other three styles, whatever you are. You can be a combination of, say, a D and an I or S and a C. I'm an S and a C. When I took this assessment, and it was so spot on, it made me think about when I was a young girl and how my behaviors are, they say. And the SC equated to being a peacemaker. And that's definitely what I am, a peacemaker.
Yeah, you are a peacemaker for sure. That's something I'm not. So,
Yes, but that's what makes the world go round. Individualities and learning to, it helped me to learn how to not be wounded by how someone else communicates to me.
so powerful. I told you that I wanted to speak on that a little bit, right? Because I was telling you before that, if people are honest with themselves and have some extreme ownership in themselves, they know their weaknesses.
Yes.
They know what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I know what mine are. I know what I do. Sometimes I'm a little brash. I'm kind of an in-your-face type of guy when I speak. And, I don't really sugarcoat things. I wear my heart in my sleeve. I'm going to tell you exactly how I feel. And to a certain degree, right? It's just I know who I am. And then sometimes I've told this story even to other martial arts school owners. I said, do yourself a favor and try not to be. Sometimes when I walk into my school, I have all these parents, and sometimes I just walk in, I kind of give a nod, and I kind of walk to my office, as opposed to going by each one of them and saying, how you doing? How's your day? How's your kids doing? And not and I know I should be doing it. And there's many times now I come in my office and go, ugh. And I get right back up and out and go do what I should have done in the beginning to make people feel welcome, because I'm the owner of the school and I didn't do that. And it irritates me when I don't do that. So I told you before too, and I said, and for some reason in my head, I think everybody is this goal-oriented, let's get after it right now. With the morning comes and the Rocky theme, my alarm in the morning is dun 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 dun, dun, right? And that's how I think everybody is. And I cannot function when I have some other people. And my son Michael, my oldest boy that helps run the school with me, he's like a laid back dude. He's a competitor, but he's not like me. He's not like super animated and just like in it. He's like, I'm like, son, what you doing today? He goes, hey, Dad, I'm just chilling. I'm like, chilling? What the heck, bro? And, or having my other son, my middle son, he's 25, 26, right? And he goes, Dad, I know you want to talk to me, but all this raw macho stuff is not my style. I'm like, what is wrong with you, bro? And so I want to know if this type of test,
oh my God,
is something that will help you know how somebody else communicates with you. Oh, please don't leave me on this one, Patricia. Where are you at? Yeah. There you are. Okay.
It will help. It will definitely help identify all your strengths and the areas you need to work on. It will also help you to understand the other three styles, so you can better communicate with them, because I've seen it so much in the workplace and other arenas and families too, that they're not listening to each other because they're irritated by how they're bringing it.
So interesting. So let me ask you this. So since you're part of that, is part of what you do as a coach, could you go into an organization and say, hey, we're going to do this thing, and then can you speak on it? Hey, if you're this and this is what this means, this and this.
Yes.
Is this what you were trained to do? And have you
Yes.
done that in companies?
I have done that in a small company because I just opened it back in September. So yes, I have done that in a small company as well as several individuals. And they were amazed of the results from the assessment, because, I emailed the assessment right to them so they can digest. Because like I said, it's a 30-page report. It's very detail oriented. And I'm telling you, it's so helpful. It's so helpful for not only understanding your own communication styles, and if you own up to it, and be willing, open you up to do better when you communicate. And so others don't feel attacked. Because you're learning to communicate so the other person can hear you, not because I want to say something.
So powerful, because I know whatever the number is where you're like kind of an aggressive, I know my communication is sometimes over the top, and it probably goes unheard, right?
Yes.
So me personally, right? So this is something something that I would be interested in doing, saying, okay, Patricia, what would it cost me to have everybody in my school, my main instructors, right? I've got 1, 2, 3, like six people, right? That we all
Yes.
work together.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably be interested in them all taking a test, and then
Okay.
having you come in and say, okay, we're going to talk about this, and say this is, and see who it is, because especially if you're getting this 30-page report, it's going to be pretty detailed. And these things always kind of, they always amaze me anyway. I've done some of these personality tests, and they are spot on.
Yes,
every
this one
time.
is very spot on. It's like, well, I
Right.
told you, it made me think about when I was small, even. It's like, wow, I've been like that a long time.
I think that would be something right up my alley. And I think it could be something powerful for other martial arts schools that have staff, and
Mm-hmm.
how to communicate. And maybe it would help you if you understand how you communicate.
Yes.
I don't know if it's going to help also when somebody needs, maybe if you go through this course, it'll help me go, I think they communicate like this.
Right. Right. Because once you understand your own and you understand how the others communicate, you know what I mean? Like, definitely a D, definitely an I. Oh, I could see that's a SC.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I'm interested in that. I think that that's something that
Huh.
you and I can talk about off camera. And then I
Yes.
think that's another podcast, to be honest with you,
All
that
right.
we can speak, right? We can say, okay, I'm going to have Patricia on again, because I have another thing called that's going to be launching soon. My second part of my podcasting is going to be, it's called Beyond the Mat After Hours, which more dives
Okay.
right into something a little bit serious and not taking up the hours sometimes. And we can kind of
Okay.
get this. And the other thing is, what I think would be a fun podcast, just so you know, is we go through and do all this. If we have all 6 of us that taken the test with you on the podcast, and when we can say, hey, this is the experience we had with Patricia, this is what she talked about. I think it can be powerful, and I think it's something that other companies can see, like, wow, this was awesome. And so I think off camera, I'd probably like to dabble into that a little bit and see what do you think about that? You think that would be fun?
I think it's wonderful. It's fantastic. And I'm ready.
Okay. We're going to do that. We're going to talk about
Okay.
what that looks like. So usually at the end of my podcast, you can take 30 seconds or whatever you want. Patricia, I want you to give some kind of words of wisdoms from yourself, from either your book or your past, what you have for us to end on this note. And then
Okay.
we'll hit the little outro. So go ahead, man. The mic is yours.
Okay. I am so appreciative that you all tuned in to this podcast. It is my first one, and I just want to share that you're not alone. There's help. We can reach each other even through these airwaves. If you're dealing with any fear, uncertainty, or anger, I've been there. You can reach out to me at pjuba at a Life Worth Living Corp. .org. That's my email, the quickest way to reach me. I would be grateful to service you. And thank you so much.
This is so good, man. I had such a fun time
yes,
with this.
So
I knew
did
that this was going to be good. And you have a great way about you. You're looking forward to putting you out there. Also, Patricia, just so you know, all of my podcasts, it's already up on YouTube. This will already be on YouTube, so it's always going to be. But I also have a website, which is just markcox.com. That's the audio portion of my everything that we do video-wise will be transformed into audio podcast. That way people can listen to it while they're driving, if they do Spotify or whatever it is. And you'll be able to share that out, the audio portion of what we did.
Oh,
and
great.
It'd be great for people to be able to listen, and you could be able to share that out. It'll be ready to go by end of day. There's a little bit of editing that I do for it, and then it'll be ready for you to rock and roll. So before I end out, I want to say thank you for coming on Beyond the Mat. It was a super pleasure of mine to have you on there. You're a powerhouse. You're going to do great on your next podcast. What you're doing, be yourself. Because you're as genuine as you are. You're so sweet, such a sweet lady. I'm glad that you're in my circle at this point. And so I'm going to hit a little outro. And if you just stay after this one's done, we'll be off camera. And give me 1 more minute of your time, and I'll talk to you right after the outro. Sound good?
All right. It sounds
right. You've been listening to Real Talk with Mark Cox. Real life, real topics, real conversation. We're passionate about motivation, fitness, self-defense, weight loss, and coming at it from a real angle. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. And we hope you had fun. We know we did. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit us up on Instagram and Facebook at MarkCox100. Make sure to subscribe and review. And tell a friend or two about the show. For more, hit up the website at markcox.com. Till